It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All the sports news you need every day in under 20 minutes. Follow Locked On today on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome, everyone, to the first live on YouTube or perhaps Twitch edition of the Locked On Cavs podcast. We're going to do a bunch of fun stuff today, talking about the schedule, talking about the roster, answering your questions, a whole bunch of really fun stuff. But Evan, how are you doing on this fine evening?
Good. I'm good. We're matching, which is kind of cute. It's not like It's not like we planned this or anything. But I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Transparencies. I saw Evan's wearing his Locked On shirt, and I figured, you know what? I'm gonna do the same because we're just rolling here. But again, today's episode is a live edition of Locked On Cavs. It is also brought to you by Wednesdays on the Locked On NBA podcast. It's small market meets big market. Wednesdays on Locked On NBA. Join Jake Madison from Locked On Pelicans and John Corrales of Locked On Celtics for a look at the NBA week from all angles. Follow the Locked On NBA podcast today wherever you get your podcasts.
Cavs need a three. Sexton works on Irving, trying to get loose. He'll fire. Hey! Knocks it down! Ground. Here goes Okoro to the bucket, and oh my! Okoro throws it down. 10 seconds to go. Here comes Colin Sexton. Sexton chased by Hill. Off to Stevens. Oh my! 45 ticks to go. That shot is blocked by Nance.
Get that big stuff out of here.
Prince knocks down that Harden pass. Garland's there. Garland upstairs for Allen. Oh, look out!
There you go. That's called team ball right there.
All right, Evan, let's just start by talking about the NBA schedule. We have not talked about this shit. Obviously, it came out on Friday. I think there's a bunch of different ways you could kind of react to it and analyze it, think about it. I think you wrote a really smart piece about this over at your new platform over at Bulletin. I think the idea that the beginning of the schedule is very, very difficult is a very apt and obvious thing to get into because, fact check, it's going to be a really tough start to the schedule. But overall, it feels to me like we're getting really quick here into the season and that it's going to come really, really, really fast in a way that I think is kind of interesting to consider for us.
Oh, it really is weird to think about because, in all honesty, September is right around the corner, and training camp is towards the end of September, and then preseason follows, and then the season starts in late October. It's going to come fast. It's going to come hard. And speaking of fast and hard, like the opening to this Cavs schedule is going to be tough too. Like, people are really wringing their hands over this, and rightfully so, I think. Opening up the season against Memphis is a weird draw. Like, I don't know what the Grizzlies exactly are doing right now because they have the potential to be a playoff team, but they keep making moves that a rebuilding team would do. And you caught for the Grizzlies a little bit more closely. If Sean Coleman happens to be watching, hopefully he's not clutching his pearls right now. Then you go back to Atlanta and Charlotte, and a back-to-back, you open up the season you open up your homes. You make your home debut. That's what I'm looking for here. At home against Charlotte. Like, that's not an easy draw either. You have LaMelo Ball. You have Gordon Hayward. They made a couple of lateral moves, I think. Like, I think James Bouknight's going to be pretty good for them, too. I think Charlotte has the potential to be a play-in team, depending on how LaMelo Ball has transformed a little bit. And if Gordon Hayward can stay healthy, like, those two are the key pieces for them. And, like, P.J. Washington's fun. Miles Bridges is fun. It just sucks because you have to play the Eastern Conference finalist Atlanta Hawks the following night, and Atlanta is more or less the same team heading into this upcoming season. They have a lot of swagger. They have a lot of determination. I think Trae Young is really going to be a tough test for Isaac Okoro because JB's strategy, at least, is to put Isaac on the best perimeter player. And then you have to go out and play Denver, which historically Cleveland hasn't performed well. I know you and I were saying, like, okay, they're going to play Detroit, then they played Denver when John Beilein was still coaching, and the Cavs had, like, one of their best wins under John Beilein in Denver.
That was the peak of the John Beilein era. I think full stop, that was the peak.
He quit soon after that, didn't he?
It was very, very, very soon after that.
Okay, so I'm glad the timeline's lining up in my head. Then you have both LA teams, and the LA Nightlife's undefeated, even in a COVID-riddled world, even with the Delta and Lambda variant. That's going to be tough. And then you have to go to Phoenix, which, battled with the Milwaukee Bucks in the NBA Finals. And then you wrap things up again in Charlotte before you come home to play Portland. And then you go back on the road again to play New York and Toronto. Like, that's tough. And yeah, it's tough. But like in my piece for Bulletin, and it's the proper name's right down Euclid, I guess, if I want to get technical with it. This is a good test of adversity for the Cavs too. Like, more than anything, like, you can really key in on, okay, is JB Bickerstaff have the pulse of this team? How is this team going to face adversity? Because this isn't even the worst road trip that Cleveland has lined up. And we can talk about that in a bit, but we're really going to have a gauge of what we should get from this Cavs team early on in this year. And also it could be a blessing in disguise, too, because if the Cavs respond well to this and they play well and they kind of battle through some of the toughness of this schedule, it could turn into a pretty strong season for them. Like, diamonds are made under pressure, and pressure makes diamonds in this situation. Just reiterated the same point, and maybe the Cavs really could have a gem after this trip.
Well, yeah, I think to kind of my version of this would basically be that I kind of think that the early season will tell you how patient the Cavs brass currently is going to be. I mean, like, they can say all the things they want right now about, like, believing in the process and believing in JB Bickerstaff and all these things, but, like, push comes to shove, or, like, are they going to be willing to weather an early season storm if the starting lineup's really young and struggles at times, if, Evan Mobley isn't maybe producing in the way you would sort of hope right as he starts his NBA career. Like, there are things they're going to be navigating that are going to be really potentially fascinating for them to kind of figure out in real time, and I think that'll tell us as much about, like, what the team, I think more so to me, like, what the organization sort of feels is going on versus what the team really is. I mean, I think, like, we need the full collective. I think we need to, like, give everyone time to really acclimate and kind of figure some stuff out before we make some really snap judgments. But, like, they could put themselves behind the eight ball very early. And I think that Charlotte game is a good game to highlight because, like, that's a team that I know, like, that Kobe Allman has talked about, like, wanting to get to, like, Atlanta or get to, like, the Phoenix level. Like, those are the teams he cited in his end of the season media availability. But, like, Charlotte is a team that was, like, 6 points better per 100 possessions. They have LaMelo Ball. They have Terry Rozier. They have Gordon Hayward. Like, they have good players, even if they're a little thin at center with, like, Mason Plumlee and Kai Jones at this point. The Cavs are in a position where, like, you have to catch that team before you can even talk about really, like, the very, very good teams in the NBA. So, like, there's just a situation there where I think if you're them, you're trying to say, okay, how do we stack up against this team that's like a more of a play-in team, still very solid, really well coached under James Borrego, has a guy in LaMelo Ball who is sensational. I mean, I kind of just like how the Cavs defend him will be really interesting. I mean, like, do you put a core on him and, like, risk having Hayward? Like,
do you think the Warriors regret not taking LaMelo and taking Wiseman?
I would.
I would too, because I know I say, if I'm a firm believer of there's a reason why you're drafting that high, and I think the Warriors will have forever FOMO of not taking LaMelo. But continue, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good one. Here's a couple other games that I've kind of highlighted as ones that I am quite interested in, and these are all, like, more in pre, like, March, right? Like, I kind of, like, I don't want to look so far ahead because we don't know what injuries will look like and things by that point, and it's hard to speculate for me that far ahead. Like, my brain just can't process, like, watching basketball next May, basically, Oh,
yeah.
Or April, I should say. But here's a couple other games that I've highlighted. November 7th, Monday, Cavs at the Knicks. Last year, the Cavs went 1-2 against the Knicks, okay? So both of those losses were pretty one-sided. Looking back, I remember at the time thinking, okay, the Cavs, like, might really stink because they lost to the Knicks and really struggled against them. Turns out that the Knicks were, like, a really solid team, 4th seed in the Eastern Conference, 11th best net rating in the league according to Cleaning the Glass. Like, I expect them to regress a little bit. But, like, that is another good gauge for Cleveland. Like, how competitive are you early in the season against a team that, like, probably should be in that 5-9 range in the East, something like that, right? Like, I think that's, like, a good gauge for Cleveland. What do you think about that answer as a game to watch?
Yeah, I think the Knicks game is a good game to watch because also, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't the Knicks a team that the Cavs kind of hope they can compare to in terms of just, like, youth resurgence? Was it more Atlanta and Phoenix? But am I lumping the Knicks in my mind?
Well, you're lumping the Knicks in your mind, but it's not a bad one because they've had veterans, but not, like, superstar veterans. Like, Julius Randle was really, like, a guy who surged in a way that was not like Devin Booker popping with Chris Paul or something like that, right? Like, it was a little bit different. So that's a good one. On that note, another one, February 8th, Cavs versus the Chicago Bulls. look, the Bulls are a team that also, like the Cavs, wants to at least get in the playoff, if not the play-in. Unlike the Cavs, they had money to spend and were really able to put their gas on the pedal to improve right now by paying for Lonzo Ball, by paying for DeMar DeRozan, by paying for Alex Caruso. The Cavs obviously have not added a single outside free agent this offseason. Like, there's also just some schematic stuff in terms of, like, I want to see Okoro defend Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan a lot. Like, that sounds awesome. Like, a good way to spend a Wednesday evening in my books. But it's also another team that, like, should... It's a Wednesday.
It's the day before I turn 29, which is going to be like one of the worst days of my life because it means I'm just teetering the edge of turning 30. It makes me sick.
Hey, who among us? But, you know, like, that is a situation where, like, that's another team. It's like, how do the Cavs stack up against this team that should theoretically be in the play-in hunt?
Yeah, and Chicago is an interesting matchup, too, because I think they were probably the most disappointing team last year in the league. Like, they went all in to get Vucevic. They went with LaVine and Vucevic. They seriously tried to make a push to make the play-in, and they weren't even close. They lose their pick to Orlando, and I don't know what Orlando's going to do with it because they got Suggs and Wagner out of it, which, you know, isn't a bad pickup for either side, but or for Orlando, I should say, rather. But, yeah, they really went all in. They got DeMar DeRozan. They get Lonzo Ball. Like, on paper, like, and Pat Williams at the 4 for them, like, on paper, this team seems like it's gonna slap, but also they could be pretty mediocre. And if the Cavs beat them, and, like, it seems like it could be a meaningless matchup at first, but, like, that game could have a lot of weight towards the end of the season when, like, let's say Cleveland is making a push, or even Chicago, who should be making a push for the playoffs, or God forbid the play-in. Like, if they lose to Cleveland in February, like, that could come back to haunt them in the worst way. And
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, like you said, I think Isaac Okoro, he's bigger, he's stronger. I think him on Zach LaVine would be a hell of a lot of fun. I think Hal Mobley has to defend Vucevic, and maybe even Pat Williams. Like, that's going to be interesting too. But Allen on Vucevic is going to be interesting too, because I think Allen has struggled against Nikola Vucevic, if I'm correct here.
Well, I think Allen's still has growth in terms of defending more perimeter-oriented pick-and-pop bigs a little bit. So.
Yeah, so, like, that's just an interesting matchup in itself. Maybe the Cavs get freaky with it and they get some Kevin Love out there too, because Vucevic, you know, isn't a world beater defensively either. And maybe they exploit that matchup a little bit, a la Ty Lue on Andre Drummond in the playoffs. Such a fun time. But buddy, that's like one of my favorite moments is literally the Cavs went out of their way to make Andre Drummond have zero impact in that playoff series. Like, they put Kevin Love on him every single offensive possession. They said, go ahead, try and defend him on the perimeter, and he couldn't. And maybe that's what inspired Andre. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe Andre was this double agent for Detroit the whole time, and he started shooting it from 3 because the Cavs tortured him on the perimeter. But yeah, I think Chicago's an interesting matchup. But how about we put a pin in this? Let's get a quick word from our sponsors, and we'll talk more about the schedule, because there's more I want to break down with this. Like, I want to talk about this road trip. That's the bad one, at least.
Okay. And I have one more game that is a classic, like, Cavs young team struggles in this environment game, which is a good tease for the break. But as you mentioned, we got to pay some bills. And first up is our friends at Sweatblock. You have, I think, if you listen to the show, have heard a lot about Sweatblock. And now, look, this is doctor created, doctor recommended.
I'm wearing
Sweatblock. Works up to 7 days per use.
I smell amazing.
Fresh. Dry assured guarantee. If Sweatblock doesn't keep you dry, you get your money back. That's great. Featured and tested on the Rachel Ray Show by firefighters. Think about, like, dudes who sweat. Firefighters, like, literally, like, big suits, going into fires, really manly dudes.
Having to perform live in front of Rachel Ray, like, there's pressure all over there.
It's a lot of pressure. It's a bestseller on Amazon for the past 10 years, has over 13,000 reviews, and is manufactured in the U.S. Look, sweating is not fun. You want to be able to have some extra confidence. You want to wear what you want to wear. You want to be able to wear a gray shirt in the summer, right? Like, as long as you just have a nice fitting gray tee, you have a golf polo that maybe you don't want to sweat through, Sweatblock can kind of help you look great, smell great, and keep clean. And they have a bunch of other great products aside from these Sweatblock wipes that are fantastic. They have these Sweatblock antiperspirant wipes that we love here on Locked On Cavs, but they have a bunch of other great products too. If you or someone you love is dealing with this, you have to check out Sweatblock. Get it today for 20% off at sweatblock.com with the promo code LOCKEDON, or at Amazon and CVS.
Today's episode of Locked On Cavs is also brought to you by DirecTV. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite show, and you're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before so that you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package.
All right, Evan. So let's do my last game, then we'll talk about the road trip. Cavs at Pacers.
Ooh, that is a good one.
Okay, February 11th. Number one, let's go back to the pre-LeBron Kyrie
at
Irving.
that point, because I'll be 2 days into being 29, and I will not be feeling 20 fine. Maybe that'll be my caption: is 29, 20 fine. So.
There's a 29. My anxieties keep me alive. I think there's an MGK lyric about being 29 and having a lot of anxiety. So
either way, but more about the. I know what you're talking about too, in terms of young players.
So
this game has always stuck in my craw.
Yeah. So let's go back to pre-LeBron, Kyrie Irving, Tristan Thompson, Deion Waiters, that era of young Cavs players. They had a really hard time going to Indiana and winning.
Oh, they did.
Indiana, in so many ways, is like the Cavs' like better performing like older brother, because like they're stable. They're in like they may be like switch jobs every once in a while, but they're consistently like performing, putting up good numbers, making the playoffs for like over 2 decades. They're dependable, right? The Cavs are a little more up and down, a little all over the place. A little Dennis Rodman in The Last Dance, like just zipping all over the place, not telling you which way he's going. That's also, by the way, how Martin Rickman gives directions, but that's a story for another day. The Pacers are this team that also are built as they are now. Rick Carlisle, a really good coach. They have Domantas Sabonis and Miles Turner up front. If you want to talk about a test for the Mobley-Allen duo, assuming like that is the starting duo, assuming that duo plays a lot of minutes together, et cetera, all the caveats that we need to give because it's still August and we don't know what's going on with a lot of stuff at this point. We haven't seen definitive news, I should say, about some of that. The Cavs are in the spot there where like Mobley could have to defend Sabonis in like the pivot, and like that is good experience for him. But like we're gonna see how strong he really is at this point against a guy like Sabonis, who is absolutely a bruiser inside. Turner's no joke either. Both really good defensive player. Or I should say Turner's a very, very good defensive player. Sabonis is a very, very good offensive player, really good screener, really physical big. How the Cavs do against that duo, a team and against a team that has like Malcolm Brogdon, that has T.J. Warren. That has Karis LeVert now, that has like a lot of stuff and is good, and has Rick Carlisle as head coach. Like that's just a good test. And again, it's historically been a place that young Cavs teams have struggled to win in. It's like a decade thing. It's sort of like a sports writery kind of like, can they win on the road kind of like checkmark box that I'm checking off here. But in terms of like in-division road games against like a team historically that has been a problem, I just like looked at the schedule and was like, oh, this is kind of like a fun time of the year for us to see where Cleveland is going to be at against Indiana.
Yeah, I think that really is a good shout out. That's why I said, ooh, good pick when he first said it, because I like the Pacers, like what they're doing, what they're building. You should check out, for those listening later or checking us out now, check out Caitlin Cooper's work, check out our colleague Mark Schindler's work on the Pacers. They provide excellent coverage, but Caitlin really breaks down like the nitty-gritty of... And Locked On Pacers.
Don't forget the homie Tony East. Tony East, the homie.
Tony's the
Locked
homie.
On Pacers.
I completely forgot about Tony. Oh my goodness! But that's not.
Wow.
I feel awful. I'm just completely befuddled. But like, just Caitlin does a really good job breaking down stuff, like plays and everything else. Like she's been analyzing Rick Carlisle's offense in Dallas, and she's been connecting the threads between what the Pacers have been running in the summer league, and they're running a lot of Carlisle plays already. So it's going to be tough in the grand scheme of like the coaching power rankings. If you want to do that, I think JB is at the bottom because you have Donovan, you have Budenholzer, who just won a championship. You have Carlisle, who's a championship caliber coach. I think Dwayne Casey's a pretty good coach, and JB Bickerstaff is a good coach in his own right. But like the Central Division's tough in terms of coaching. But It's a good test for Mobley, like you said. I think Sabonis is hard because he has some of that stretchiness too. I think it's going to be tough for Allen as well. Like, you need to see if he can unlock that asset of his game. Miles Turner is a beast. They have Isaiah Jackson as well, which they just got in the draft. Like, that's really good. And then, like you said, Brogdon's interesting. LeVert's interesting. Like, there's a lot of unique pieces on this Pacers team, and I think Rick Carlisle could be the coach that make these pieces fit. And I'm intrigued to see how the Pacers look because they could arguably be B. I think Milwaukee's the best team in the Central Division, but the Pacers could really I mean, like, I'm really high on what the Pistons are doing, and I'm really high on Cade Cunningham, so, like, I'm intrigued by what the Pistons will look like. But, like, the Pacers could really widen the gap under Carlisle between them and Chicago for the second best team in the division. And, like, I'm just really high on it. I think the Pacers, on top of the Bulls, were one of the more disappointing teams last season, and I'm interested to see where they go there. But Chris, let me kill the mood real quick. You know how many sets of back-to-back games the Cavs have this year?
Oh, I read this in the press release. I don't know.
They have 15.
It's a lot.
They have a lot, and they have 3 oft-injured players in Kevin Love and Larry Nance Jr., and I'll throw in Dylan Windler as well because Windler is probably going to be a little bit part of the rotation next year, but Love and Nance will for sure be a part of the rotation, especially for that bench mob. They will probably have to rest some of these players on back-to-backs, Love especially, maybe Nance if he has some more injury bugaboos come up, but this road trip that is the hardest for the Cavs, in my opinion, starts when they play the Trailblazers in Portland, which historically they haven't played well in. And then they have to go to Sacramento. They go to San Francisco to play Golden State, then Sacramento, then the Jazz, then San Antonio, and then they wrap things up in Oklahoma City, which is a tough place for Cleveland to play, but they played the Thunder well, and the Thunder aren't very good. The problem is the Cavs have 2 back-to-backs in this road trip where they have to play the Warriors and the Kings on a back-to-back, and then they have to play the Spurs and the Thunder on a back-to-back. Like, I think that's just a tough draw for the Cavs, and that's, I think, in about January or February, I think. So this is going to be really in the nitty-gritty when these games really start to count, because I think, especially in the Eastern Conference, with how, like, tuned up every other team is, we're going to have a clearer idea of where this Cleveland team sits. And if they're in the play-in hunt or even the playoff hunt, like, this road trip could make or break their season. And especially with how, like, these players have to sit out, and there's going to be probably other players that are injured at that point. Like, this could be the brutal stretch where, like, people really overreact and think the sky is falling.
Well, I think can we talk about, like, the general, like, tenor of, well, maybe we should take another break.
We should.
I think at this point we're about at that point, but I think after that break we should talk about the tenor of how, like, we have some questions, and we're gonna get to, again, if you have questions, drop them below. We've already got some great ones we're gonna get to.
We'll probably get to them in the second hour of this or so.
Yeah, yes, but I think the next segment we should talk a little bit about the tenor of the gathering, because I have like a take that I'm going to uncork on here and workshop with you in real time, if that's cool. Let's just say, Evan, there's something that I'm working on that you know about.
Oh, yeah, I do.
That let's just say there's a draft of this that is going to be in there. It is inspired by a certain guitar smashing person that you and I are hopefully seeing in concert.
Dude, I will seriously be so bummed out if I don't get tickets tomorrow morning. It's Phoebe Bridgers. Like, if you guys are listening, please don't be a narc. Don't, like, jump me in line. I really need this. I need a win this year.
We Evan and I need to go to see Phoebe Bridgers at Jacobs.
We're the first, like, quintillion-dollar podcast. We're gonna take the yacht, both yachts separately, and drive it up to the pavilion and just park
we can take
it.
the Rolls Royce to see the Gators, okay?
Yeah.
But we can't go see. We just really need to see Phoebe Bridgers. But Evan, let's tell everyone about our friends at Built Bar. Look, Built Bar, best tasting protein bar ever. I had a coconut one today. It was great.
Sorry, I'm thinking about my joke before the show where I said they should make Built Bars for cats because my cat's been cultivating mass for the last year. For those who follow me on social, he's a thick boy with 2 C's. And if they made Built Bars for cats, Finnegan could be the mascot for it.
Yeah, it just jacked, like, plays football at BYU on a walk-on. Look, tons of great flavors: coconut, cherry barcia, raspberry, mint brownie, double chocolate, salted caramel, etc. Look, my favorite flavor right now, I gotta go with the strawberry. It tastes like a chocolate-covered strawberry. I know Evan is a long-time fan of the cookies and cream. I think also a fan of the grasshopper cookie, if I'm not mistaken.
You're correct. The raspberry and strawberry ones are also good. If they made a blueberry one, the trifecta would be complete for me.
Oh, okay. We're throwing out free ideas. Built Bar, let's go. Let's get that humming there. A blueberry bar sounds incredible. Look, remember, not only are Built Bars the best tasting bars, but they're healthy too. 17 to 18 grams of protein. Calories ranging from 130 to 180, 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. Amazing flavors, all tasty and all healthy. Order today and get that raspberry, that mint brownie, that cookies and cream, or whatever it is you like. And remember, try a mix box if you want to try them all. Built Bar is also the official protein bar of the U.S. Track and Field Team. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, for 15% off at Built.com.
It's that time of year again, and all eyes are now turning to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Get all the updated odds, props, and contests, including online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest and the world's largest $200,000, which you know is pocket change for Locked On Cavs, NFL Survivor contest open now at BetOnline. Head to their website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive a 100% welcome bonus, which is 50% more than what it's usually been, so this is a pretty good deal. Be sure to take advantage of their opening day super promo, which is make a bet on the Thursday, September 9th season opener between the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as the helmet is on Chris Manning's shelf, and the Dallas Cowboys, which is Carter Rodriguez, the only unverified host in the Cleveland Cavaliers podcast network that is a Cowboys fan. But if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25 for new customers only when signing up using the promo code NFL100. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. From football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Do not wait and take advantage of all the great offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts, and don't forget to use promo code LOCKEDON when signing up.
All right, Evan. So let's. By the way, if you're joining us, maybe you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. Yeah. Subscribe to the Locked On Cavs YouTube channel. Let's get those. Let's boost those numbers up.
Let's get us back to 100.
Get us cooking with gas here. Yeah, it's unbelievable. So, Evan, I tend to think this. This is the take that I've been workshopping, and it's something that I think I've said in different ways before. I think that number one, I think Twitter is just a stupid website.
Fair.
Like that is just designed for people to yell at each other all the time. Number two, I tend to also think that the Cavs, the way they operate, they never really act like, they never like show you anything in terms of how they talk about themselves. They always project like that everything is fine, basically. Like that it is just.
Oh, it's the meme with the dog sitting in the burning room.
Yeah, like that is the projection, and I think people latch onto that. I think when you nominate Colin Sexton like a bajillion times for Player of the Week awards, people latch onto that. I think they do stuff. I think Colin Sexton's very good. You didn't need to nominate him for 900 Player of the Week and Player of the Month awards. That was just silly. I just think that was overkill. I think frankly when like the tenor of the full-time coverage of the team is not exactly biting or critical or inquisitive, and it's just repeating team talking points, you create this ecosystem. I think the Cavs with the way people talk about them, it is like, I understand that you want to see your favorite team perhaps improve and get better and make strides. I also think when you think about what the last couple of years have been like, when you consider the mistake of the Kevin Love contract that kind of hurts your ability to hit accelerate this summer in some ways and add shooting, which the team desperately needs to balance out the roster. When you moved on from the greatest player who will ever play for a franchise, I kind of think like, I think that I think the tenor of Cavs conversation could really be more about like, we need the Cavs to evolve in some way as an organization. And I don't know what that, if it's ownership that has a play in this, I don't know if it's like whatever it is. I tend to think there's one constant, and that constant, even if it is not as visible as it was, has a factor in this. I think there's just a point where like, I think of the way that we talk about the team, and I think maybe it's just people on Twitter, which is again like a very stupid website, but I think there should be more of like asking the Cavs to just kind of like be a little more normal sometimes. Oh yeah, like that would go such a long way if the Cavs could just like act normal for like 6 months.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment.
Like the Cavs fans kind of have like a complex where they just think like they can like tweet their way through fixing everything.
Yeah, that's a super duper frustrating issue that a lot of Cavs fans seem to deal with. They think that they want to hyper focus all the issues on random player of the day. Yeah, Kevin Love's contract is really holding Cleveland back, but like tweeting through your feelings about how much Kevin Love is ruining your experience or making a Stan account dedicated to players where especially one player thinks it's super freaking weird that you guys do that.
Like
the
least online player on the Cleveland Cavaliers
thinks it's super weird.
Has like the most has the most online.
Well, some of the more online players on the team too think some of the fan reactions, some of the more notorious accounts that have been around for such a long time that Ken Carmen even knows them, thinks they're insane. Fans, I get it, that's fan. I'm not going to tell people how to be a fan. I'm not going to tell people how they can and can't do things and go about things. But like, I think people need to calm down a little bit. Like I get it. Like the Cavs are fun. A lot of people like were dyed-in-the-wool fans. It became dyed-in-the-wool fans because of those championship squads. Like, for those who listen to this show on a regular basis, like my real diehard fandom started when LeBron first left, and like I fell in love with like watching Smarto Samos and Luke Herringody play. So you know, I'm just a prisoner at this point, and I have that complex that I can't think of the name of right now. But irregardless, it's tough because I think the Cavs are a good team as presented. I think people getting offended that Bleacher Report didn't include them in their top 10 teams under 25 or whatever. Like, let's be honest here. The Cavs do have an impressive young core, but they have a lot they need to prove as well. And, like, you look at teams like Dallas who has Luka or teams like Boston with – it still blows my mind Jason Tatum's so young. But, like, Jason Tatum –
It's nuts that he's, like, 16 years old.
I know.
You know?
He keeps regressing. It's insane. Like, he's going to be the first fetus that goes on the court eventually. But, it's weird. Like, I'm not going to tell people how to be fans, but I think, like, the obsession with certain players is odd. But at the same time, I was the same way with Kyrie Irving. Like, I defended him to a T. But, like, this is before using the internet as a medium to do it. But, like, people would, like, tease me for rooting for the Cavs. I'm like, oh, no, they're actually really fun to watch. You should check them out. I remember I would defend the Deion Waiters pick until I was blue in the face. But the moment he was traded to Oklahoma City, I was like, F that guy.
The worst thing I ever wrote was like basically a blog post. Maybe one of the first things I wrote for Fearless Road was like talking myself into Deion Waiters.
That's a bold.
And it was like
stunned when they made that pick because I thought Harrison Barnes was. I wanted Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. And then
I was not, for reasons that we can discuss off air, but I was not. I was pretty sure that's worse.
But you were doing more coverage of the team at this point, though, too. Like, I was a fan. You wrote about the pick for Fear of the Sword, so.
No. I talked myself into Deion Waiters like the first LeBron year.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I should have clarified. I will send you the piece because it was well done. Like, I got a best of SB Nation NBA tag, but like,
I love when I got those. I actually got a little emotional when my story about why the Cavs meant so much to me got the best of SB Nation tag. I'm like, oh, that's nice. But yeah, I'm not gonna tell people how to be fans, but I just think the behavior's a little odd. I just don't think this team is worth so much time, energy, and focus. Like, you know, that's a little hypocritical of me because I do this full time now for Bulletin, and at the same time, like, I just feel like you can use your energy in more positive ways. And I think the tribalism around players is a little weird. Like, there's just definitive camps where, like, you either pro this player or anti this player. There's no in between. Like, it's so black and white. I think people need to be more gray at this point.
Yeah, and I just think too, like, I think if there is a fan pressure on the Cavs to, like, just act a little. I think the Cavs and like have to be the ones that evolve here, or else we're gonna keep repeating the cycle for the next 20 years.
Oh yeah.
Like, the Cavs have to evolve in some way, or else like they're just gonna remain this like very weird organization. Like, that's just the reality of it. They have to evolve in some way, and that doesn't mean like people need to like lose their jobs and like you need to bring in someone else. It means that like everyone needs to like not keep repeating the same cycle of like, let's hire a general manager from inside the office, let's like hire a crazy head coach hire that like. We have to like
which
then
one,
like,
Blatt or
like
Bayline?
Well, I'm saying they've done this twice in a row. So like, is the next coaching hire going to be like the next like whoever like the next Beeline is, and then but maybe like a younger one, like the younger model, and then like you have like Lloyd Pierce is like the lead associate head coach you're paying lots of money to, and then that guy will be the head coach in 18 months. Like you need to not do that again. You need to sort of I think actually lay the foundation. And Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, Colin Sexton, Isaac Okoro, Jared Allen, you have the young pieces that can push you in that direction if you can kind of get it there. And that's, I think, where we're at. And I think that's what makes this such an interesting season, and not something where we need to force expectations, I think, on that. I am just so of the mind that they might be really frisky and interesting this year in a lot of ways. I also don't think it is crazy to think that they are still a year away from really being interesting. I think they need an early year of cooking to kind of figure this out a little bit. I don't think that's bad. I think it's just the reality of you lose LeBron James, you have no money to spend on veteran upgrades. Evan Mobley needs to gain some weight. Everyone's really young. You're just in a position where it's gonna take time, and that's okay.
Yeah.
If you acknowledge that is actually a good thing.
It is.
Anyway, that is as ordinary as I'm gonna get today.
I don't really think that's ordinary of a take or as hot of a take at this point. It's tough because I think it's such a risky proposition for Kobe Altman and in turn JB Bickerstaff, because I think these two are linked together in tandem. And if this team underperforms, I think JB will be the first to go. And I think
but this is the problem. Yep. If you start making decisions to this is the inherent nature that becomes really hard in running a sports team. When you start making decisions to save your own skin, the team will pay for them when you are not there. And it will take a really good general manager, a really good coach to coach and GM around that. So it's just a really good way. I think we got a comment I want to say from Jesse, and then I think we should go into the next segment and take some of these great questions again. So hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell.
Drop questions.
But also leave great questions in the chat on YouTube. So here's just a comment I think from Jesse that is very apt. He writes, "Vets weren't coming here anyways. Drafting and developing is all that can save this franchise. Front office is a problem. We need to be a play in this year." I think there's some there is some dissonance in those comments. I think there are 2 points arguing with each other there, but that's maybe that's an episode we can kind of do later on.
The two top teams in baseball battle it out for 10 in a row. Here's what our local experts are locked on today. The New York Yankees won their 10th straight game, knocking off the red-hot Atlanta Braves 5-1 on Monday. The Yankees are still second to the Rays in the AL East, but for how long? Subscribe to Locked On Yankees on YouTube today to get Stacey Gotsulias' take on one of the most competitive division races in the MLB. New England Patriots quarterback Cam Newton will miss at least 3 days of practice after traveling to a team-approved, out-of-town medical appointment due to what the team is calling a, quote, misunderstanding about tests conducted away from NFL facilities. Could this open the door for rookie quarterback Mac Jones to get the starting job on Week 1? Listen to the Locked On Patriots podcast today to find out. On Locked On NHL, they are ranking the top 50 players heading into the NHL's 2021-2022 season. Subscribe to Locked On NHL on YouTube to watch or wherever you get podcasts to listen. Local experts on the biggest stories, it's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.